The Mannerheim Method. How to stop the aggressor. Carl Gustaf Mannerheim is not just a national Finnish hero. He is the symbol of resistance to Soviet Russia. 3 times it tried to swallow his little motherland in 1918, 1939 and 1944, but Mannerheim managed to defend it by delivering a crushing blow to Soviet Russia. Under his guidance, 4 million populated country successfully managed fight with a superpower which had a population more than 170 million. The actions of Putin's Russia towards Ukraine are remarkable, similar to the relations between former USSR and Finland. Not in vain Marshall Mainila named the former USSR as Russia in his memoirs. So they are incredibly topical. He officially painstakingly worked on changing the type of the war from the Liberation One to simple civil war. It had been done because of aspiration to accuse the legitimate government and army of starting the war. But it can't hide that fact. In 1918 we were defending the integrity and independence of our state. If we hadn't stood and fought, Finland, in better case, would be turned into autonomous region of the USSR without neither any national freedom nor truly statehood, and we wouldn't find a place among free nations. We'd paid a heavy price for our independence, but the victims and hardships of this liberation war won't be forgotten. Baltic countries accepted Soviet conditions and received a horrible result. The jet set of all 3 countries had been destroyed, people were sent to Siberia, communists had destroyed the society because of total indifference of the nation. So if you don't fight for, you'll lose everything. As it turned out, we have made the right choice. New time, new duties. And still all basic issues are solved with iron and blood. To protect our freedom, the army should be in full combat readiness. Fortresses, cannons and foreign support won't help if every man doesn't realize his importance as defender. Let Finns remember that strong army cannot be formed without unanimity, and only the powerful nation can safely create its own future. Although fellow citizens hated and defamed the army of Finland, it saved the state from a doom and created the powerful groundwork for future independence of Finland. Finnish army wasn't armed enough. We didn't have artillery, armored vehicles, and were lacking in ammunition and projectiles. The power of Finnish army was its unanimity. Everybody was ready to protect their country by all means. We were bad armed, but good studied. In spring 1920 the government allowed communists to organize meetings of Finland's Social Workers' Party. Although the secret central police demanded forbidding that party, relying on irrefutable evidence, and required its leaders to be prosecuted for treason, the government didn't react. Communists received an opportunity for continue its meetings, propagandize their view, and participate in parliamentary elections in 1922. As a result, communists were given 22 parliamentary seats, and could fight for their own hand as well as for Moscow I. The election struggle was hard. Left-wing forces led subversion. The election system, which had been accepted at the previous parliament election, wasn't changed. And it should be especially emphasized. That party, which just 2 years ago had been leading the country to a brink of doom, had the same constitutional rights as those parties which fought for the preservation of a public order. While during the meeting at Ministry of Foreign Affairs I tried to prove the opportunity of conflicts because of possible Bolsheviks' invasion into Europe, I was frankly misunderstood. Military leaders were better aware of current affairs, but on the whole the issue of relationships with Russia was of secondary importance. That's why it's absolutely and naturally that our liberation struggle, which didn't allow Bolshevism to spread at north, hadn't been appreciated deservedly. It's not clear which effective aid could be given by the League of Nations to our state in the case it is attacked by great power. An aggressor, for example, could claim it became the object of attack, and then instead of providing effective support, endless exploring matter would be started. The King of Great Britain Edward VIII during the audience said me that considered communism dangerous for the entire world, and in this connection told he day before yesterday Litvinov was at my audience and said that Trotsky propagandized the worldwide revolution, and nowadays Russian authority doesn't approve that idea. They wanted to create the most perfect form of government in their country only, using the best ideas of state structure, and an external propaganda wasn't included in their program. Exactly that he tried to inform me, the man who had clear awareness of their subversion in England, France and South America. At the beginning of August, Baltic countries were finally joined to former Soviet Union. In those eventful weeks the negotiations on the nickel concession were held, and Finland members were under enormous pressure there. Simultaneously in Helsinki the communist demonstrations were staged according to known sample aimed at crisis provocation. When a group of brawlers had been arrested during street riots, the Soviet ambassador protested to the Prime Minister. The most an attack of Finnish airliner Kaleva, which had been brought down in 1939 on 14 July during the regular flight from Tallinn to Helsinki, excited public opinion. The facts: two Russian fighters shoot down Kaleva and Russian submarine cruised in that area possessed all the goods which had been at the flight were proven. Besides, Finnish pilot and liner crew passengers died. They were foreigners, and among them French diplomatic courier Fleu, whose bag with letters became a so-called trophy. It was confirmed several years ago by captured submarine officers' evidence. According to his words, bag with the diplomatic mail on the high seas was transferred to the ship, which had been immediately expelled from Kronstadt. On 27 November in 1939 Molotov informed our ambassador the Soviet government didn't consider itself bound by Treaty of Non-Aggression anymore. Nobody paid attention to Finnish suggestion of a joint study of the incident considered a shot of unknown origin in the Mainila village, and started to claim Finnish government was asking to withdraw Russian troops at 25 kilometers from the border, misrepresenting the facts. In Andrei Zdanov's archive the real plan of conduction the May-Milsk incident is preserved. At that time Zdanov was the first secretary of the regional committee of the Communist Party in Leningrad. This historical issue had been opened for a long time. The Soviet Union didn't accept it, and only at the beginning of '90s recognized it was provocation. Russian historians themselves said Soviet side had assaulted. In the note from 25 November, Molotov blamed Finnish armed forces for continuing hostilities not only at Karelian Isthmus, but at the other areas as well. An answer for our justification was fire. Soviet historiography, of course, asserted that Finland attacked Soviet Union. But, as it well known, in 1990s Soviet historiography was changed and it was proven that everything has happened vice versa. The documents showed that Soviet secret police carried out a provocation. It was some kind of show to make a reason for Soviet Union to start the war. On the second day after war has started, on 1st December, the Information Bureau claimed that in Terijoki City, in fact in summer colony located near borderline, People's Government of the Democratic Finland Republic had formed. Finnish Communist, the member of the Comintern Committee Kuusinen was elected as chairman of the parliament. The next day Information Bureau claimed an appeal of assistance had been done by People's Government was approved and informed that former USSR and Finland signed such an agreement. Simultaneously it was reported that Soviet Karelian nation reunited with their tribal Finnish brothers to create a unified national state. Of course, nobody seriously taken the People's Government statement and leaflets which were thrown around with bombs and promised bread to hungry Finnish people raised only laughter. In fact, such propaganda just strengthened our front. Soviet radio and press conducted tough anti-Finnish propaganda which mainly was aimed at ostensibly dominated Finnish riots. As well, reference was made to the brilliant conditions in Estonia. Finnish Soviet Community for Peace and Friendship did whatever was possible to tillage in Helsinki and it was effectively supported by USSR ambassador in Helsinki. The number of workers of an embassy and a consulate raised, most of them spoke Finnish and actively traveled around the country interested in prohibited zones. The fact surrounded Russian divisions didn't give up despite cold and hunger was in general the result of political leaders' work, who hammered threats about future revenge over their relatives and soldiers' own death from tortures in captivity into soldiers' heads. In many cases officers and ordinary soldiers decided that it was better to commit a suicide than to be a captive. We were 16, 17, and 18 years old. I was just 17. Our mission was laid and help more experienced militaries. We were outdoors day and night. We had nowhere to hide from 30 and 50-degree frost. Many of us had frostbitten the toes. Then the enemy tank attack started. They were attacking us and shouting hooray and our division was ready to fight hand-to-hand with them. We were helping border guards. We were commanded to wear helmets. Our experienced militaries repelled the attack and set on fire Russian tanks with homemade grenades and Molotov cocktails. The Russian retreated. After the tough lessons of the war, the parliament nowadays understood that military expenditure should not be weighted on pharmaceutical scales and amounts necessary to conduct the Defense Department in order allocated without murmuring. If such understanding had been existed among members of parliament before, the country could economize a lot. Carl Gustav Emil Mannerheim, Publishing House, Waprius, 1999. Marshall finished work on his memoirs in 1955. Support of this video channel is just your attention. Please, use the options under the video, like, share, subscribe, and add to your playlist.